Good morning, good evening, whatever time you're listening. Welcome to episode 6 of The Practical People, the Practical Effects podcast show. I am your host, Christopher Moonlight, and I am co-hostless tonight. Happens every once in a while, but we do hope to have both Jack Ritchie and Mike Hickey from Fright Hype back. But joining me right now is a return guest, one of my favorite guests. He is a man of mystery, a man of action, a man of many talents. He is so cool that Steven Spielberg took the rap for him killing a triceratops, and I hope he said thank you. But anyway, welcome to the show, Shannon Shea. How are you this evening?
I'm great, thanks, Christopher. And listen, thanks for having me back on the show. You know, I really do enjoy it, and I have been listening, and I think that it's I love that this practical effects have become like this like it's almost like an underground movement now. It's almost like the Matrix. You know, it's like we're hiding in the bowels of the earth. You know, and we're on these podcasts and. You know, I hear interviews and with different people, and it's always intriguing to me because we're you said a man of mystery. It's like this whole thing is becoming kind of mysterious at the same time. It's actually kind of cool. I kind of dig it.
We should be doing this on ham radios. That would make it really underground, kind of punk rock, like codes at certain times of the evening that no one understands what it means.
Right. We should be broadcasting from Singapore. You know what I'm saying?
So, yes, nobody knows my secret location in Kyle, Texas. I mean,
whoa.
That was code for Singapore.
Yeah, they're going to triangulate the signal now, and they're going to find it.
So, well, anyway, I am really excited to have you back on the show because you're always fun to talk to, and you've always got great stories to tell, and your excitement for the craft, it's like, anything we talk about, you've always got some example or story. So, but anyway, we're going to kick it off. We always kick it off with a current event, and I've brought this up on the show many times, but Alec Gillis's movie Harbinger Down has finally hit DVD and video on demand, and Shannon, I believe you were actually at the premiere at the Egyptian Theater.
Oh yeah, at the Egyptian on Hollywood Boulevard. It was a fantastic night, I must say, and the thing is and I can't remember, because you'll have to forgive me. I can't remember what I tell people from person to person. So sometimes I worry that I'm getting to that age where you say things and people go, "Oh, Shannon's saying that story again." So, but the thing is that I remember back in 1980, I think must have been 88. Alec and Tom, they really wanted to be filmmakers, and that's the primary reason why they left Stan Winston's when they did. It wasn't necessarily to form ADI; it was to follow their dream as filmmakers. And these guys have God, they work so hard. They've pushed and pushed and pushed and pushed and pushed. And to see Alex standing there, with all these people, his friends, his colleagues, the cast of the movie, the crew of the film, all there, celebrating the opening of this film. It was more than just hooray for Harbinger Down. It was actually witnessing, the fulfillment of a dream, and I just think that's amazing. I feel that's amazing. Whenever you see someone fulfill their dream, it's just a great feeling, and I couldn't be prouder of him. I just know, because I know how hard it is. It's a tough thing to do, and he did it, and God bless him. I saw that picture on Instagram of he and Ben Brown, the cinematographer and editor, at Target holding up copies of the film with their faces. It's cool. It's just cool. I love it. I absolutely love it. I love it.
I have, a little confession to make, and I haven't made it like that big of a secret, but I actually, when the Kickstarter first started, I had met Alec. I actually worked a couple of doors down from his studio. I wasn't aware that it was there, and I happened upon it one day. They were working on a giant head sculpt outside. I think that it was for an outdoor event, so they were trying to see how the paint looked outdoors, and I wandered upon it and got invited in to look around the showroom, realized who I was in the presence of, because I'd been watching him in special features since my teenage years. And he was kind enough to give me his email address. And when he started the Kickstarter campaign, I was dead broke. And I was like, I have to contribute to this somehow. So I actually wrote to him and I said, hey, I can't give you money, but I'll help you get the word out. And it led to this kind of snowball effect of, me thinking I was just going to tweet a few things and maybe contact a little bit of press, to me kind of being brought into the inner circle. And I played a huge role, not the only role. I brought in some friends too, and Alec had some people, but we kind of formed this like a radio station would a street team, and got him interviews and got him press and kept tweeting it out and posting about it on Facebook. And long story short, I actually got Alec and the star of Harbinger Down, Camille Balsamo, visiting my house last week. They brought dinner.
Nice.
I'm actually sipping on a glass of white Sauvignon right now that they left behind. And they were just, it's just one of those things where, you would expect that after a while of helping someone and they get what they want, to say like, okay, thanks for your help, we'll be in touch. But no, I got a phone call from Camille, said, me and Alec are going to be in Austin, and we want to come have dinner with you. And my mouth dropped open, and suddenly they were there, and Alec was like, I brought these beers, here's some barbecue, you want to have these beers with me? And I'm, it was...
Where did he pick up the barbecue from? Did he get it from the county line?
It was, I don't know where he got it from. He went into like the little quaint downtown area just up the road from where I am, and just picked up some local barbecue. And but we
all know that Robert Rodriguez's favorite barbecue is the county line.
No, I'm too far from the county line, but there's a good place by me called Dickie's. That's pretty good as well. But
Dickie's, that means free food for Christopher Moonlight.
Yeah, I should have got a sponsor. But it was just wonderful, and like you said, the excitement in his eyes. And one of the wonderful things about getting the visit too is, I admit, is Alec's first film. When I sat down and ordered the video on demand, I was like, okay, is this movie actually going to be good? Or, and by the time it was done, I was so proud to have been a part of it. I really thought that he did a tremendous job, and I've actually seen people, go out of their way to actively slam this movie and say, oh, it looks cheap, or, it's blah, 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 this or that. And I was like, the thing that really struck me about it, although we did get the homage to The Thing and the an Alien and the Roger Corman spirit that Alec promised, I really saw quite an original spark in the way that, the sets were made and the way that the creature was presented. I really felt, there actually was quite a bit of originality in there. And although it was very obviously a B movie, I really enjoyed it. I went back and I watched it a second time with my daughter, and I enjoyed it even more the second time around. So, I'm so pleased, and I'm glad that's finally happened, and I can finally talk about it. And so, Alec, Camille, if you're listening, thanks for visiting. And
congratulations both. I'm gonna address something you said, because it's interesting that you say this, because you say people are slamming, people go out of their way to slam the film, and I'm gonna state my opinion just publicly right now, and that is easy to sit at home and do nothing, or work a 9-to-5 job and watch a movie and just go and listen. And I'll be honest with you, I it's not that I don't have those opinions about films, because I do, but generally when I have those opinions about films, it happens when I see a film that the budget is over $100 million. It is so obvious that it is the result of corporate thinking, of a team of what is what I'm looking for? Just unoriginal, yes, suits and unoriginal thinkers, bean counters, who are trying to put together a formula just to extract money from people, and that ticks me off to no end. And I will get quite vocal and say, no, I didn't go see that movie. I don't need to see that movie because I saw the trailer, I'm not interested in buying into all this crap. But when you make a film for the budget that they made Harbinger Down for, and you have to understand, this is huge. This is huge. It's not like Alec and the crew were anywhere near temperatures below, I'm going to say 80 degrees. It's like they're in a friggin' mattress warehouse in Chatsworth, California. And there's not a single time when I'm watching that film that I think, God, it must have been friggin' hot in there when they shot this film. They're all wearing parkas, and they're in a mattress warehouse in the San Fernando Valley, and they did it for under $1 million. Are you kidding me? And it doesn't look like a cheap, made on the fly, heavily digital sci-fi piece of crap. It really holds its own. So if you sit there and you're looking for the cracks, you're looking for the cracks in a carefully crafted monumental wall. And you're not looking at the wall, you're just looking at the cracks. And you know what? There's no way to live. It really is no way to live. If you want to attack, go attack the people who stroll around Hollywood, with substance abuse problems, who have horrible personal relationships with other human beings, and run around and just literally fabricate crap to remove you from your money and make you feel bad about yourself. And that's all they do. That's all they do. So instead of running to the theater and supporting crap and going, oh, well, I just want to see how bad it is, they don't care. They have your money. Quit watching it. Quit watching it. You're not doing yourself or anyone any good. Quit watching crap.
I have to applaud you. That I agree with you 100%, and that's one of the things about Harbinger Down that really stood out to me was the heart in that film. You saw it all up there. I could even psychoanalyze the script and see the man that wrote it within the fabric of it. I'm not saying that the script is about the man that wrote it, but you can see in the characters and what he loves as far as the 80s horror movies that he said he was going to pay tribute to, and also some stuff about himself. This is a man who has 4 daughters and is looking into the future, and I almost kind of read a subtext in that as well. So I think Harbinger Down was a true piece of art, and if you watched it and you didn't think it was that good, I would say go back and see it again, because you're missing out. There really is a lot of heart, and I have to say as well, there's going to be a lot of people who are going to look at Harbinger Down and other crowdfunded films with this kind of heart and go, oh, this is easy money, and they I'm just going to raise some money and I'll make I'll just whatever random film, this.
No, listen, it's really difficult, and this is going to be a weird segue, but I think about my friend Sandy Calora, who is trying desperately to fund his Shallow Water movie, and Sandy, yeah, and Sandy is he's a very strong personality, and I know that he has taken a lot of hits. This man's taken a lot of hits. But my God, he is probably one of the most honest, upfront, dedicated artists that I have ever met. I mean, this guy is the Rocky Balboa of the independent sci-fi horror film world. I mean, you keep knocking him down, you knock him down, he keeps getting back up. And I'll tell you, I really have to salute him, and it's not easy. It's not easy when you put your heart and soul into something only to get greeted by one of two things: criticism, or even worse, being ignored. just being absolutely ignored.
And
It
it's not
hurts.
like anyone's getting rich doing this.
No,
There's not
nobody's getting rich.
there's not any I mean, we all want to see these creators see a return on what they do and eat and make a living, but it's no one's it's not like it's like you said, it's not like they're a big studio who's just separating people from their money and
Right.
whatever.
Yeah, and all constantly looking for for that thing. And I always this is just something that I'm just going to throw this out there, and at the risk of losing some of my fan base, but I just want to know when I can stop seeing promotional commercials, whatever you want to call them, on the internet for television shows that are made by alternative platforms like Netflix or Amazon Prime or any of these places that have to do with drug dealers. It's like, I just don't get it. How many drug dealer television shows do we have to see? Are we that fascinated by crime and drug dealers that we want to completely laud them and buy into this? I mean, have we sunk that low? You know what I'm saying? And you can say, well, Freddy Krueger's a serial killer, Mike Myers is a serial killer, and yes, I get it. I totally get it. But those films are presented in a way, and they're presented in a genre that is meant to be cinema of the fantastique. It is not meant to be a documentary film. It's not meant to be. I don't think anyway that you're supposed to be looking at these films and not feeling the horror. But I don't know. It just turns me off, man. I would much rather watch a film that is about imagination, that is about an alternative reality that transports me someplace that isn't the nitty gritty world of prostitution and drugs. Why do I want to? I try not to drive. I try not to drive in Hollywood. And I don't need to go. If I wanted to see that, I would just go park my car and walk around Hollywood Boulevard for a while. It's just gross. I get it. So that's me. I'm an old man. Okay, done. Where's my walker?
I agree with you. One of my favorite films, horror suspense films, is Silence of the Lambs. And one of the things that kind of irritated me about the following movies was that Hannibal Lecter went from being this kind of psychologically damaging, frightening character to kind of being this glib, almost kind of intellectual Freddy Krueger.
Right.
And after they lost me after the first movie. The first movie is fantastic. It's one of my favorite movies. I can watch it all the time. But I think the thing about horror, especially, is it's a cathartic process for the audience. You at least have to have one survivor. I always hate the horror movies where everybody dies at the end, or that one person thinks that they made it and then they're dead like right before the credits roll. Because I feel like people go to horror movies not so much just to experience some sort of glib horror, but to have a cathartic experience where they see a character survive and they're able to say to themselves, I can survive this. Because life is frightening, and so we need to sometimes see a character that figures out how to survive it, at least until the sequel. And so yeah, I totally agree with you, and I love hearing that. And
well, let's talk about this because now that we're on the subject of independent horror films, I recently saw Tusk. And Bob Kurtzman, who did the makeup effects for that film, is a dear friend of mine. And he told me, we're friends, we talk, and he told me what he was doing when he was doing it, and told me what he was doing. And I thought to myself, okay, whatever. I really don't want to go too much into it for people who haven't seen it, but I will probably stay away from as much plot revealing as I can. But film was that, first of all, it took me by surprise. Absolutely, from frame one, it took me by surprise. And it's audacious, it is funny, it is frightening, it is everything that I wanted from a horror film. uh, and now that now that we have more options about how we get our entertainment than ever on the planet. I mean, there's so many ways you can get your entertainment now on the planet, from your phone to your laptop to your pad. You can, like I said, there's so many different platforms. There's YouTube. People have channels all over the place, all over. For me, so what that does, so what that does is it just kind of takes, these headings like horror or fantasy or science fiction, and these headings are too big now. You know what I'm saying? It's like too big. Now you have to say, well, the kind of horror that I like is, I can tell you what I don't like. I'm not a big torture porn guy. I'm not a huge fan of that stuff. It's not my thing. And by the way, Tusk is not that. It seems like it could be, but it's not. It really isn't. And I really don't want to go into that too much. But my favorite kind of horror is what I call funhouse horror. And to me, that's where Sam Raimi reigns supreme, because Sam Raimi can scare the crap out of you, and your scream turns into laughter, the same way as if you're in a funhouse in an amusement park. It's like you scream and then you're laughing and going, wow, and talk about cathartic release. To me, that's the best kind of horror. Is the kind of horror where at the end of it you go, it's like you was like, wow, that scared the crap out of me, and you're laughing about it, and you're not going, that scared the crap out of me, and now I just want to go someplace and have a drink and just kind of forget what I just saw, Like, I mean, listen, I haven't seen Green Inferno. I've read a lot about it. I've seen the trailers, and I'm thinking to myself, do I really need to see this? I mean, do I need to see it? I've never seen Cannibal Holocaust because the idea frightens the crap out of me. I mean, it just does. I don't even want to see it. I don't know if I could take it. Cannibal Ferox, all that stuff. There's something about it that just.
And that's interesting to me because better than anyone probably. If somebody gets an eye gouged out or something, you have a good idea of what materials that actually is, and I think that says something about the storytelling process, that even if you are aware of just how a trick is done, the kind of and I don't use this word lightly, but I actually believe it's an appropriate word, the magic of storytelling generates something that is greater than the sum of its parts.
Amen.
Even someone like you can watch it and be disturbed by it.
Sure.
Without giving it away, I read the Stephen King book. I actually haven't seen the movie, but I read the Stephen King book, The Green Mile, and I don't know if you've read it, but
I've seen the movie, but I haven't read the book.
Well, the book is it's an excellent book. I really enjoyed it, and I thought it was very well written, but it was so heavy. The ending was so grim. It messed me up for days. Like I, had to seek some sort of solace in just, finding friends and making sure that I had a more lighthearted day than usual that followed, because it was, it just kind of bummed me out. And that's powerful stuff. I'm a writer, and I should be able to go like, well, he did this or that to get that effect, but I wasn't able to get beyond the magic that he generated. But sometimes that magic can be a little, it's like being an occultist or something. There are some ceremonies that should not be performed if you value your soul.
Exactly. And it's so funny that you mentioned that, because we're just talking about Stephen King just yesterday, because my wife is a writer. She's writing her third novel right now, and she's and like at the end of every day I come home from work and I sit down, get something to drink, and she'll read to me what she wrote, and I love it. I absolutely love it. I mean, this new book, I'm not going to even go into it because it's so, it's just amazing. But we were talking about Stephen King, and the most amazing thing about Stephen King is that he is such a readable writer. He's so readable you can, like, whenever I'm in a bookstore, which is rare these days because try to find one in LA anymore, but when I'm in a bookstore and I don't know what to do, and I'm kind of like looking at new titles and going, nothing's hitting me, I'll go look at the Stephen King section and I'll just pick up any one of his books and start reading. And before I know it, I've read a chapter because he's so readable. And to me, that's the magic of writing. The man is so comfortable in his own voice that he can deliver three-dimensional characters. He can throw 24 plates in the air and keep them all going at the same time. It's amazing. He's an amazing writer.
I love writers like Ray Bradbury and
very, very readable.
And Edgar Rice Burroughs for the same reason. And Ray Bradbury is one of those guys. It's like there's a movie that he wrote. Had Joe Mantegna and Edward James Olmos and a couple of other famous actors that are not coming to mind at the moment. But it's called The Wonderful Ice Cream Suit. It's a Disney movie. It's a beautiful Disney movie. I don't think it's available at the moment, but if you can find a copy of it, I highly recommend it. Not horror, not science fiction, nothing like that at all. It's just this wonderful movie that Ray Bradbury wrote the script for, and they shot what he wrote. And the actors say his lines, and you just go, that is pure Ray Bradbury right there, coming out of their mouths. Just
my thing with Ray Bradbury is that when you read, Ray Bradbury makes it look easy. He makes it look easy. Like you read his stuff, it's again highly readable. His word choice and his sentence structure is so good. He's really good, and it's almost like a friend is telling you a story. That's what it's like when I read Ray Bradbury. I read the what is it called, the Halloween Tree? Is it what's called?
The Halloween Tree. And
I read that last year, and it was such a good book, and I love that he really kind of captures with that, and Something Wicked This Way Comes. Something Wicked This Way Comes should be required reading in every school in the nation on October 1. October 1, every class in America should be reading Something Wicked This Way Comes.
And even though this show is pre-recorded, I should tell our listeners that we are recording the show on September 30th, so October 1st is tomorrow for us.
Right. But everyone should start reading it because it is such a. Even though I don't know if it takes place at Halloween time, I don't think it does. But
no, it doesn't. It's the carnival coming to town.
Yeah, but it has such a great feeling of just of being a kid and that excitement in the air, and then that kind of mystery, the kind of fantasies that you build in your head as a child that makes you believe that there's a Sasquatch in the woods outside the back of your house. Or maybe you did see, a tentacle slither into a sewer when you walked out to put the garbage out. You know what I'm saying? It's those things that, as a kid, your mind just starts racing, and he really breathes such beautiful poetry into that stuff. He's really a master. He's another master. I love it.
I was privileged to actually work on the last project that Bradbury was involved with before his death. Which was a documentary on his life that unfortunately never came to be, and that's a whole other story. But I got some friends involved with that were big Ray Bradbury fans, and we actually did some puppet work, some water tank puppet work, and
I remember this. Yeah,
and Bradbury actually, I've got photos of Ray Bradbury with some of my puppets and holding some of my artwork, and he signed some stuff for me, and I got to meet him a few times. But I remember sitting in the backyard of my friend's house because we didn't have room for a green screen, so we would wait till night. We put up a green screen in his backyard and set up a water tank that we floated these puppets in. And I turned to my friend Dave. We call him Dave Grave because he's he's got a pompadour and a skull earring. And, we just looked at each other giggling maniacally, and we both admitted we are children of the October country.
Oh, yes.
And, and what you're talking about, isn't that why we do what we do? I'm more on the, I think, filmmaking end, and I do my own practical effects work, but it's nowhere near professional level. I just learned it because I love creating stuff, and I needed to make this stuff to make my own film work, and it's not to the level that you work at. I've never done live casting, but
but I want to tell you something. I want to talk when you're ready. I want to talk about that because you have no idea how important that is to me. But go on.
No. I please do, because I mean, this is, I my friend, I had him build a Ferris wheel for the movie, and he built it out of like dowels and skewers and crepe paper and cat sand, and he's a smoker, so he built the cars in the Ferris wheel out of cigarette packs, and he just had a really great time making it, and I made these goblin puppets and that sort of thing, and it was, we had a great time. We shot some stop motion, but it was very down and dirty, sculpey clay, like all those just raw materials. I mean, we have no idea how to make fiberglass molds or run foam or anything like that.
Well, here's the thing. So because I've got so much to say about what you're saying, my brain's gonna explode. But I want to say this right now. What you're talking about is exactly the reason. Well, it's a couple of things why I decided to do this. I mean, I don't know when this is going to air, but the styrofoam head creature contest, and that's why I say in the rules specifically that the styrofoam head is not to be used as a sculpting armature, because it's not a sculpting contest. What I like is when people make stuff. They make something out of nothing, and that's the magic of being a human being. Human beings make something out of nothing. That's what we do. We take you said popsicle sticks and dowels and cigarette packs, and you make a Ferris wheel. Alec Gillis took they took bubble wrap and latex and this and that and lights, and they made tentacles and a creature from outer space. That to me is true magic. That to me is magic. And it's that, I'm, and again, I don't mean to sound like a commercial. On my YouTube channel, I put up a film called Work with Your Hands, and it's just this little thing that I put out there. And the reason why I did it is because I'm hoping, I'm not looking to get 1 million hits or whatever the hell. I'm just hoping that one day someone finds it, someone who never thought that what they were doing, whether it was needlework, cooking, planting a garden, building a piece of furniture, that they thought that they were doing meant anything. But working with your hands. Listen, I don't. If I died tomorrow, my wife would probably put it on my tombstone. He wants everyone to work with their hands, and that's the truth. I want everyone to commit to doing something. Make something with your hands, and it doesn't have to be a creature for a movie. It can be cross stitch. You can sit down and color in one of those groovy, black velvet posters that you get from Michaels or something. Just do something. Do something. God gave you opposable thumbs.
My wife, she picks up the kids' coloring books after they go to bed, and she colors My Little Pony pictures.
Yeah, but you see, this is what I think. I think that is the link to your sanity. I mean, I think about that thing in Scanners. How do I control my art? And he's inside that giant head that he's built. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah, to me, that's not just David Cronenberg thinking, hey, I need this really cool location for this guy to get killed, so I'll make him an artist to make a bunch of excuses to have these big heads and things. But for years, that's where the joke, it's in poor taste. Basket weaving. They gave people in insane asylums, they weave baskets. It's because you work with your hands. It's that link to your physicality. It is that expression that comes from your brain and your soul. It's transmitted through your fingertips, and it communicates to another human being, and it unites us.
It's a vocabulary.
Yeah.
Every medium has its vocabulary. This is something that I push to people all the time, because I actually started out wanting to do comic books, and I do comic books from time to time, but I find I don't actually have the patience to crank out page after page. I'll sit down and I'll crank out page after page of storyboard until I can't take it anymore, and then I move on to some other aspect of my filmmaking. But I'll run across these people like, oh, I want to make a movie, but I can't afford to do it, so I'm doing it as a comic book first. And I go, well, what do you know about comic books? It's like, oh, well, I'm just going to take my script and I'm going to have someone draw it. And I go, no, you can't do it like that, because comic books are their own vocabulary. and they're going to
Yes,
alter
sure.
your story, whatever medium you choose to tell your story through. That medium is going to alter the story, because it's, a comic book page is a completely different vocabulary than a movie screen. And I really feel that people choose their mediums. This is why even though I don't personally embrace CGI as an art form for me, I'm not against it. I don't do the practical people to advocate anti-CGI sentiments, because I know that I have a very, very close friend who does beautiful work with Studio, was it 3ds Max, and some other 3D programs, and it's his medium, and it speaks to him, and it gives him something back. And I think that with my wife, coloring books, that gives her something back. Some people write, some people embrace, like myself, I write and I direct and I draw my own storyboards and I create my own effects with the help of other people. I love involving other people, but it's for me, I actually am on the autism spectrum with ADHD and dyslexia. So I have to bounce around from medium to medium, but I still have taken the time to understand what each medium gives me back. And but I really do find that it's working with my hands, like you say. And I'm going to share a personal belief with you and the listeners. I think that there are at least two dimensions that we're aware of, and we don't even realize it. There's the physical dimension that we exist in, and there's the dimension of ideas. And it's like the line in the trailer for From Beyond. Every journey starts in the imagination. Everything around us, the computers we're using, the microphones we're talking into, the houses we're in, the clothes we're wearing, the tables and chairs we're sitting at, everything started as an intangible idea. And we as human beings are kind of like these kind of portals for these things from idea space to cross over into reality. We as portals just take the raw materials and complete the transition, and then boom, you've got a bookshelf, you've got a novel, you've got a movie, you've got a creature. And I kind of feel, Shannon, like you are at cinema makeup school and doing stuff with Stan Winston School of Character Arts. You're kind of like a creative OBGYN. You are helping.
I thought you were going to say creative Obi-Wan Kenobi, but you went GYN instead.
Yes, it's just a mouthful to say, especially.
I don't know. Yeah. I have to say something. This is not, being a teacher. When I was first asked to do this, it was as a substitute teacher. A friend of mine's mother was very ill, and he had to drop out, and I was in between jobs, and Mike Spatola, who is one of the administrators at Cinema Makeup School, called me and said, "Hey, can you come and substitute?" And I had never taught a classroom, this or that. And I got in there and I, just kind of fudged my way through for the week. And by the end of the week, I was like, hey, that was kind of fun. So I just said, hey, listen, if you ever need someone, call me. And then, just the way life is, I was, and I have been pursuing my own projects, and it was easier for me to pursue my projects and be a teacher than it was to be pursuing my projects and working in a studio situation. Because when you're working in a studio situation, I want to make sure that this is very, 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 very clear. Because I don't want you to sound like I'm sitting around in my classroom on the phone all day long, because that's not the truth at all, as my students will tell you. But when you're working for a studio, the best work that you do is when you can shut out everything else and concentrate exactly on the task at hand. Every special effects makeup, every visual effects person can tell you this. About, the fact that your trees need to be trimmed, or that your back fence isn't closing correctly, or you can't be thinking about that stuff because there's too much money riding on the outcome of what you do. The stakes are really, really, really high. As a teacher, I feel that what is the worst that can happen? And the absolute worst thing that can happen is a student can fail. That's the absolute worst that can happen. Well, millions of dollars hasn't gone down the toilet, this and that, but they don't fail. And the reason why they don't fail is because I won't let them fail. And they know that. I will not let them fail. I believe in them more than they believe in themselves. And by the end of it, they believe in themselves. And they can't. It's like that old Spirograph commercial. Your eyes won't believe what your hands have done. And it's the truth. I can't tell you how many of them will look at me and go, I didn't know I could do that. Well, yeah, of course you can do it. Listen, if I can do it, anyone can do it, because I was not one of those 12-year-old prodigies, My father, may he rest in peace, I mean, he said something which has haunted me to this day. And he said, Shannon wasn't naturally talented, but boy, he had the drive, and he had the heart, and he just kept going and going and going, which is the absolute truth, and when I, in my books, I'm very, very honest about the struggles that I've had, because it wasn't that, I just kind of walked in, I wasn't Steve Wang or Matt Rose, who walked into Stan Winston Studios, and they were geniuses when they walked in the door. My college roommate, Steve Berg, was a genius before he ever showed up at CalArts. He didn't need to go to CalArts. CalArts needed him. He was a genius. I just wasn't that guy. I've been floundering around and working my behind off and sitting next to the real masters and having them turn to me and say, Shannon, do this. Shannon, do that. And I have taught myself to get better. So if I can teach myself to get better, I can certainly teach these kids. They're between the ages of 18. I've had students that are in their 50s. People who have decided at 50 years old, I don't want to be an attorney anymore. I just don't want to do it. And I don't go in there and go, you really think you can get hired somewhere at 50? You're damn right you can get hired somewhere at 50. If you're good,
go do it yourself now.
Yeah, absolutely. It's like this is a great time to do this. It's a great time to do this. And I really think that's the secret is that I am, if I'm an OBGYN, which is fine. I'm delivering babies every day, I mean, and it really is. It's that. And 90% of it is just convincing someone not to give up on themselves. That's 90% of it. Just don't give up on yourself.
I usually find that it's, when I work with somebody, and I kind of, I think, got good at what I do, and I'm still learning till this day. But I'm going to be 40 next year, and I'm doing stuff that I was watching other people do in their early 20s, like you said, watching them and going like, oh, that person's, they've got it. They understand anatomy. They've got this talent. Some of them I watch burn out, though. They're not doing it anymore, and I'm still going for it. But what I found is that a lot of my mistakes, a lot of the things that quote unquote failed, were the things that I learned from the most. I pulled out of the ashes of a failure. I pulled out like one, was it the Native Americans would char sticks to harden them? You'd pull out that one beautiful piece of that had been gone through the trial by fire, and you're like, it failed, but here's this one piece that's tougher than anything else, and I can take that and I can move forward with it and incorporate it into my next project. So now I do want to move us along to the contest, because we will be putting this out in time, because I believe, what's the deadline for the contest now?
I don't have my calendar in front of me, but it's the last Sunday before Halloween, because Halloween is on Saturday, 31st. So what would that be? The 26th, is that correct? The Sunday? Or is it, because the 25th, no, it would be the 20, oh gosh, I can't remember. I think it's the 25th. It's the last Sunday before Halloween.
That is actually the 27th. is the
27th.
No. I'm looking at September. Hold on a second. The last Sunday of before Halloween is the 25th. You are correct.
25th.
So,
25th.
and I have a question from a listener,
Please.
Leonardo Garnicia says, "Hey, I'm from Mexico. Can I participate in this? It really looks fun."
Absolutely. Absolutely. Anyone can participate in this because it's not going to be a physical thing. You don't have to mail in anything to me. All you need to do is send me a picture with your name, and I need your age because you got to be over 18, or your parents can send it in and say, this is my son's work or my daughter's work. But anyone can participate in it. There is no entry fee whatsoever. And what this has come from, and I'm going to be very honest, is that my wife and I used to, and I don't even know why we started, but we had a beautiful collie mixed dog named Sophia. And every year we would, I think it was because the first year we bought her a Halloween costume, and we were like, we put her in the costume, and then we saw another Halloween costume, and we put her in a second, and by the time we had bought 4 Halloween costumes for her. Like the first year we owned the dog, we were that crazy, and we asked our friends, what should she be for Halloween, and that sparked a 12-year. I can't call it a contest. It was a contest, but we would literally, tell our friends and to tell their friends and their coworkers and anyone to vote for Sophia's costume. And I think that towards the end of her life, it was like 500 people all over the world voting on this dog. And we didn't even have a website. It was all just emails. People emailing and forwarding emails, and we would hear from people and say, hey, you don't know me. I'm a friend of so-and-so who's a friend of so-and-so, and they sent me these pictures, and your dog is so beautiful. And we think she should be this clown or whatever. And so after 12 years of doing that, we had to put her down last year. It was, quite horrifying because it was just around this time of year. And so, so that is now missing from my life. And it's been 100 degrees out here in California. It doesn't feel like fall at all. And I just realized I don't have the Halloween spirit. I just don't have the Halloween spirit. So I thought, what could I do to jumpstart this again? Well, the Stan Winston School had given me a set of my Business of Making Monsters DVDs, which I and God bless David Sanger of the Stan Winston School, who will stop and tell anyone it's the most important DVDs that you can buy from the school. It's 3 of them, the 3 volumes, 1, 2, and 3, and it's a value. It's a $150 value, I believe. It's somewhere around there. And they gave them to me, and they said, you can give these to whomever you want. You just can't make any money off of it. So I thought, oh gosh, of all my friends, who am I going to send these DVD? If I send it to one person, then someone else will go, hey, I wanted to see those, and then, and I don't want to keep them here at the house. It's not, they're meant to be given away. So I thought, wow, what if I have this contest? What if I do this? And it gives a chance for everyone to make something. You work with your hands. Make something. Just make something for Halloween. And I don't care. The only thing I care about is that it's not a sculpting armature. I just don't want someone to take a bunch of wet clay. I mean, listen, if George Ushell grabbed a bunch of wet clay and threw it on the outside of a styrofoam head, he would make the greatest Halloween monster that anyone's ever seen. Well, I'm leveling the playing field. You can't use wet clay. You can't use oil clay. You have to make it out of something. Make it out of what? I really don't care. You can use paper mache. You can drip wax all over it. You can etch it with, acetone. You can do latex and cotton buildup. You can do latex and tissue buildup. There's a million ways if you just use your imagination. There's a million ways to do this. So I just want people to use their imaginations, work with their hands. I don't care what you do. It can be cute. It can be funny. It can be grisly. It can be frightening. It can be whatever you want. And you can use whatever store-bought styrofoam head you want. You can buy they have ones now that I call Simon McCorkindale. Remember the old show Manimal that Stan Winston did back in the 80s?
I only remember the commercials. I never watched it. But
the actor in that, Simon McCorkindale, there is now a styrofoam head like at Michael's and Hobby Lobby that looks like him. So you can actually use that as a base. And I've also said they now at Michael's and Hobby Lobby actually make styrofoam skulls. You can use a styrofoam skull. I just don't want you to go out and get a plastic go out and get, a professionally made rigid foam head. I just want to level the playing field. Everyone starts with a styrofoam head. That's all.
And I think
And just make
there's total validation in that for me, because we're actually for our movie we're sculpting little. I don't want to give spoilers to my movie, but we're actually sculpting stuff on styrofoam heads at the moment because we can't do any life casting, and it's working wonderfully. And we're not using clay. I'm not going to enter the contest because I, like you, really am looking forward to seeing what other people are doing, especially the young people who are, maybe trying this for the first time. Let's talk about the contents of the prize, though. The business of making monsters. And
Sure.
I really do. I have to agree. I feel like this is probably one of the most important tutorials that you can get from the Stan Winston School of Character Arts, because being here in Austin, Texas area, I work with some mid-level and aspiring artists who do work for films. I'm working with Jenna Green at the moment, who is on season 4 of Face Off, and she actually was one of the head special effects makeup artists on Army of Frankensteins, which, like Harbinger Down, just made it into Walmart and Best Buy and video on demand, and I think it's coming to Netflix. But I also watch her sometimes. She's not in Hollywood. And this goes for other artists out here, some of which have gone to cinema makeup school. They're trying to find their footing. They're brilliant at their work, but they're trying to find their footing as business people. And I try and help them sometimes, but I myself, I'm still learning. I consider myself a pretty good business person, but and I try to be very organized, which I'm constantly telling people it's very important to be organized. But it's, I feel like, I used to be an art teacher as well, actually, and it was little kids and teenagers, but sometimes they'd be going into college and they say, well, I'm majoring art, what should my minor be? And I would say business.
business administration, absolutely.
Yeah, make your minor business. So, without getting you to give away the whole tutorial, because I realize that's how Stan Winston School makes their money and is able to keep generating these wonderful tutorials. What are some of the primary things that, if someone's a special effects artist, what should they be thinking about? What are the kind of things that, in terms of, especially I hear a lot of horror stories of these artists doing this wonderful work and going, I never got paid. They said they were going to pay me, and
I know,
and I never got paid.
I get in trouble for saying this. I really do, because even at cinema makeup school, the administration every now and then will say, you shouldn't tell your students that they can't work on a student film unless they get paid, because then they'll never work. And I go, well, that's not what I'm saying. I'm not saying that's what you don't have to walk in to a student film, these poor independent filmmakers who might be making a movie for literally $500 and they need a slit throat. I'm not saying that you go in there and go, well, that's going to be $3,000 for your slit throat, blah, blah, blah. You don't have to go in there and be an arrogant jerk, but there's no reason that you can't get something from it. Meaning, these people are filmmakers. That's what they want to be. They're aspiring directors. There's a director of photography on set that knows how to use a camera. You need pictures for your portfolio. So you can say, hey, I'll tell you what, I'll do this stuff for you for free if you shoot some portfolio pictures for me. Hey, I'll shoot this for free if you help me edit my demo reel. There's always something you can do in trade that will help you. And that's part of it. So it's what it is. There's two things I'm gonna touch on just quickly here that I think every single artist, every single creature maker, whatever, you just have to know two things. Number one, you have to diversify. You have to diversify. You can't. No longer are you going to be able to support yourself by doing one thing. You can't do it. So I'm going to say, if you are a creature maker and you're thinking, well, I only want to work in movies, I only work in television, I want to do this, you're going to end up in the poorhouse. You have to start thinking, what else can I do? What else can I do? I design tattoos? Can I make skateboard stickers? I mean, whatever you can do, you should be doing. And I'll tell you, whenever my students say the one thing that will get me angry with my students, and by angry I mean I'm not like, I don't, go berserk or psycho. But when someone tells me they're bored, oh my gosh, then you've let the beast out of the cage. You can't be bored. If you're a creative person, it is impossible to be bored. It's impossible. You can be tired, because damn it, I get tired. But there's a difference between tired and bored. Bored means you have lost touch with your own imagination. I say this to my students all the time. There's always something you can be doing. And this is a huge indicator. This is something else I want to tell every aspiring artist, every aspiring, if we're going to talk to creature makers, let's talk about creature makers for 2 seconds. If you're not making a creature, you should be thinking about it. If you're not walking around a hardware store and looking at something and going, ooh, how can I use this? How can I make this work? Then maybe you're not in the right field. Whatever you're daydreaming about is what you're supposed to be doing. So if you're supposed to be making a creature and you're thinking about the lyrics of a song, or you're writing poetry in your head, that's what you should be doing. I hate to say it. If you enjoy making monsters, make monsters as a hobby, but you should do, because to me, listen, I'm not, religious, but, I am, isn't that the spiritual? That's the big bullshit thing to say. Oop, I said the S word. But you know what I'm saying? That's the BS thing to say. But I do believe that is God, whatever the hell it is, speaking through you. That's when, there was a time when I was sitting in a geology class at the University of New Orleans after I had come out to California and gone back with my tail between my legs. It was a long story. It's in my book. Anyway, and I was sitting there in chemistry class, and I was failing. I was failing chemistry. And I looked at my notebook one day to try to kind of like, I'm going to give it I'm going to go out there and give it the old college try and try to get on top of this, and I'm going to try to pass this class. And I looked through my notebook, and there was like, and I had written like atomic number of boron, and then the rest of it was just page after page of monster drawings. And I just went, oh dear Lord, what have I done? I have lied to myself. I convinced myself this is what I should be doing, and that's not what I should be doing. So it's true. It's true what Arnold Schwarzenegger says in that YouTube video. If you've never seen it, his big motivational speech is the six steps to success that someone has cut together and put the real rousing Anthony Robbins music behind it. I really think that everyone should watch it at least once, because it is very inspirational. And he says you got to dig deep and find out who you are. And I think that is the most difficult thing for any one of us to do. And once you make that decision, you got to just let go of everything else. And it's hard. It's really hard.
It's very hard because there are people around you who are trying to tell you to hang on to that other stuff as well, because they can't let go of it. I had the same problem. I convinced myself that I needed to become a picture framer, and I worked for a really great guy who was a master picture framer, and after a year of working for him, I was like, this isn't how I want to spend the rest of my life. But I had let people tell me that, oh, you want to be an artist, there's no money in that. Or even though I was selling paintings, and even though people were coming at me going, hey, can you build this puppet or whatever, I was still trying to, it took me a long time. Like I said, I'm making my first feature-length movie, and I'm 39 years old, and I'll probably be 40 when it's, out there. But then I think Clive Barker, he was 40, I think, when he first had his real success. So going back to what you were saying about your students who are in their 50s and say, I don't want to be a lawyer anymore, they're finally letting go of that thing. And
you should never judge yourself for that either. I mean, because one of my students, I heard one of my students say this today. Someone said, this has got to be the greatest job in the world. And I didn't say anything to them, because at this point in their education, they should feel that way. But the bottom line is, you're a commercial artist, and it should be the greatest job in the world. It responsibility to a client. And that's where the business of making monsters comes in. Because at some point, you need to get out of your own head, get out of your own way, put your ego at the door and say, okay, I can work for a client, do a great job. I can invoice them fairly. I can collect my money. I can write up a good deal memo. I can give them what they want so that when we walk away, they're satisfied and I'm satisfied. And that's the essence of it. And unless you can do that, then you have to be a fine artist, and that's a whole different road to go down. Being my daughter is a fine artist, and she, she's a performance artist on top of that. In fact, I do want to mention this quickly because, for the practical people's sake, she was just in a really crazy, she participated, this wasn't her thing, but she participated in this crazy performance art piece called No Fate, based on Terminator 2.
Wow.
And the two people that dreamed it up were just fans of the movie, and they turned Terminator 2 into an artistic, expressionistic dance, concert or whatever you want to call it. And it was pretty friggin' amazing. I really was blown away but by the subtle things they picked up on in that film and turned into dance performance, into fine art. It was really moving. I mean, I really was like, holy, I couldn't wipe the smile off my face. I couldn't believe it, So I'm just saying that you got to dig deep and figure out who you are, and just be proud of it. Good Lord, if you want to be a picture framer and you don't want to paint paintings anymore, then why torture yourself? I don't understand it. It's like, well, my mom and dad paid for all those lessons. Yeah, you know how many lessons? I mean, I took piano lessons as a kid, and I didn't go through it all the way. Do I regret not playing the piano? Of course I regret not. But it's not that I regret. I regret not playing the piano, but I don't regret not sitting down in front of a piano every single day of my life and playing scales. Because if I had wanted to do it, I would have done it. I just didn't want to do it, It's like I want the Matrix needle in the back of my neck. You know what I'm saying? I would go, bzzz, I can play the piano now. Show me. That's what I want. I don't want to sit there and go da na 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 na. I don't want to do that. Otherwise I'd do it.
Everybody I think has that fantasy of being that guy at the party that sits down at the piano and just gets everybody singing "Hey Jude" along with them, and they're
right. Sitting there and being oh so witty and playing the piano. And
exactly.
Oh boy. Oh God.
It's kind of like the Dumb and Dumber fantasy kind of thing,
oh, yeah,
where you wake up from it and the truck's headed right at you because you weren't paying attention to what you should have been doing.
Exactly.
So
that's exactly correct.
Well, I want to add one thing that I've kind of learned in my personal experience working on low budget films, doing special effects with my kind of like I said, because I don't run foam. I've never sculpted to do a silicone mold or a fiberglass mold. Excuse me. I would like to learn that stuff someday, but it's not necessary to what I really want to do, which is being a film producer, whether it be director, writer, or just the guy kind of telling the director, writer what I need. But one of the things I found, which comes back to the kind of the business aspect of it, is someone would come at me and say, like, I've got this much money, and I want to do this. And I would say, look, for that much money, you can't do that. But here's what I can take your money and what I can give you. And then I would break it down, and I would, from materials to what it was going to look like. And I would say, and this is what I can give you as an artist as well, because I literally would go, I've got $200, can you make it look like Avatar? I've literally heard that before.
Yeah, that's unreasonable.
Yeah, and I would say, look, now, Avatar costs, like $500 million or $250 million. I can't make it look like Avatar, but I can give you this, and this is my style, this is what I've done before, and I say, and it'll cost you this much, and it'll take this much time, and this is what it's going to look like. Are you okay with that? And if they say, and I think if you're upfront with them and they say that's not what I'm looking for, then they may come back to you another time when it is what they're looking for.
Right.
Or they'll say, okay, that will work for what I have, and then you give it to them, you deliver on what you say you can do. I think it's when you overpromise or underprice yourself. I think that's where a lot of these young artists are really kind of hitting those pitfalls and becoming discouraged.
Right.
So
managing expectations is huge. That's a big deal. I talk about that too. About something I call demystifying things, and I talk about that also in terms of protecting yourself and doing what I call keeping a paper trail. And that's all in the business of making monsters, where I say, have a phone call with a producer, and the first thing you should do after you get off the phone is sit down and write that person an email and say, hey, Jack, it was great talking to you. My understanding, I just want to review that we spoke about. We said that we're going to have a monster. I was going to make it out of this. It cost this much money, blah, 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 blah. Thank you very much, Christopher Moonlight. And then they'll write you back, hey, Chris, yeah, that's what we said. Thank you so much for, reaching out. We had a great conversation. Look forward to working with you, Jack. And then what happens is you take those and you print them out and you put them in a binder. And just every time you have a phone call, hey, Jack, I talked to Bill, the first AD. He told me that we wouldn't be needed on set till this day, blah, blah. Yes, I talked to Bill. Bill said that, blah, 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 blah. And the reason why, and I know it seems wasteful, and people always go, the environment. I say, screw the environment for right now. Cover your ass. Cover your ass, because it's got to be on paper. And the reason why is because when they come to you and they say, this isn't what we discussed, you can go, oh, yeah? You take out your binder and you go, tip, 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 there. On this day, I sent you this email. You responded. And then it's on paper. And that is like pointing a gun in their face. If you just go, oh, no, man, because if you go, oh, no, man, wait a minute, and you pull out your pad and you start flipping through your old emails and you start searching your old emails, it doesn't have the same gravity as when they see it on paper. It's a psychological thing because it's real.
And to those people listening, I'm going to back Shannon up on this right now because I've been in this exact situation after contracts have been signed.
Yep.
I have been confronted. You deceived me. I'm going to sue you. And then I'll be honest, Shannon, it was actually, I got these through email and I was, and I did print these out, but I was actually to go straight back into my email and re-forward them the email and say, this is the email you sent to me on this date. Please note that this date predates when our contract was signed, and I explained to you this. Please read it over. And then, okay, I'm sorry.
Exactly.
And I actually, that has saved my ass a few times in keeping that paper trail. And you should, even if you don't print it out, never delete those emails. They are very important, even if it's years later.
Why I say print them out because the reason why I say print them out is because how often do people's computers crash? Or your phone's there and your battery runs out and you're charging your phone and then what I'm saying? It's like if you keep a written record, it's like when people say, what's more important? Should I have a virtual portfolio or should I have a physical portfolio? I always say both. I was in a meeting once and someone had bought a brand new iPad and they were trying to be all slick and great and show me all their work and they couldn't access the internet through their I don't know who their provider was, but they were having trouble accessing the provider. And they're sitting there struggling with their pad. And just at the point where I was about to say, forget it, they pulled out a physical portfolio and said, here. And they saved it. They pulled it out from a nosedive. If they hadn't had that physical, that would have been the end of it. I would have said, thank you very much. We'll be in touch. That would have been the end of it. But they pulled out a physical portfolio and they pulled the whole meeting out of a nosedive. So you got to be prepared.
And in this day and age, you can go to the 1 hour photo and get your pictures printed up, and you can go to like the dollar bin at Target or wherever, and you can get a little photo album thing for like family photos and just slip them in there and keep it in your like waistcoat pocket.
Yeah, exactly. Just keep it on you. Just keep it on you. It's no big deal. No. So anyway.
Well, Shannon, I think this has been a real pleasure, and you've given us so much information. I'm very excited about the competition. And
yes, me too. Please. By the way, it's if you go to Styro Creatures, www.styro creatures creatures.blogspot.com, you will see the rules. You send your entries to info phantomharbor.com. Info@phantomharbor.com. You send me the picture, send me your name, your age, and let me know how you built it. Is it paper mache? Is it gelatin? Is it whatever? Just let me know how you built it. And right now, as of this recording, Chris Wayless, who did original Gremlins and Dragon Slayer and Raiders of the Lost Ark, is going to be one of the judges.
Wow.
And Ted Haynes, who is a master fabricator at Legacy, worked Iron Man and all these other films at Legacy, he is another one of the judges, and myself. So we've got some real good professional judges who cannot wait to see these styro heads.
I can't either. Are you going to post some of the entries on the blog and on your
Absolutely.
Facebook?
On the blog, on my Facebook, you can follow me, Shannon Shea, on Facebook. You can follow me on Twitter. On Instagram, I'm Pavog, P as in Peter, AHVOG. You can see my students' work. I take lots of pictures of my student work. But yeah, follow me. I'm there.
And we'll have lots of links for our listeners too on leglesscorpse.com, which hosts the Practical People. We'll create a little article page that'll have all of these links, and I'd also like to include the video you were telling me about before, the Work with Your Hands video.
It's there. It's on my YouTube channel.
Yeah, so people can see that. Anyway, at the end of the show, we do shout-outs. So I do a shout-out, and my guest does a shout-out. So is there anyone that you'd like to shout out to this evening, Shannon?
This is going to sound corny, but I would love to shout out to my wife, who is so embroiled in this novel, and I just have to shout out to her because this is going to be when she finishes this book, it's going to be a fascinating story because this is not something she set out to do. The project picked her. And what is happening is, and there are times when I come home and she looks so intimidated by what she is up to that I just go, keep going for it. You gotta keep going. I also would like to shout out to all my students everywhere. Keep creating. Work with your hands. If I find out that you're sitting at home right now bored, I will come through this computer and I will strangle you. So those are my shout outs.
And I know some people in Austin who have been your students too, so I will narc you out to Shannon if you are bored. So that's wonderful. Well, I'm going to give a couple of shout outs as well. I would actually like to give first off shout out to Alec Gillis and Camille Balsamo, who came over to the house again with wonderful barbecue dinner and alcohol and dessert, and just had a really great time with us, my wife, my children. We really enjoyed the visit, and it was a real shot in the arm for me, not just in terms of inspiration, but just reminding me that even though I'm a homebody right now, toiling away, not by myself, I have some wonderful people working with me, but we're kind of in a bubble. So to have people come from outside of that bubble and show that they are really excited and care and approve of what we're doing was really something. And I also want to give a shout out to one of my former guests, Matt Winston, who sent me an invite to a wonderful Facebook page, which is I'm blocking on it. I think it's called Magic Wheelchairs.
Magic Wheelchairs, yes. He invited me to throw my 2 cents in, but I'm going to be honest with you. What they're asking for, I really don't even know. Like Ted Haynes would be much better at that than I am, because they're transforming these wheelchairs for these children into Halloween costumes, and they're really cool. So yes, please go to Magic Wheelchairs. Please, it's such a great idea.
It's I just saw the How to Train Your Dragon Toothless wheelchair, and I loved How to Train Your Dragon, and I just thought that was so wonderful. He invited me to that, and I saw what it was about, and I was like, oh, that's just fantastic. So Matt Winston, if you're listening, shout out to you as well for pointing me that way, and God bless all of those children.
Yeah, absolutely.
Just fantastic. So anyway, Shannon, it has been a pleasure. So for the Practical People on leglesscorpse.com, I am your host, Christopher Moonlight, once again, with my guest, Shannon Shea.
Thank you so much.
Everyone have a great evening or morning or whatever time you're listening.
And happy Halloween.